You're 51 meters underwater. That's 17 stories deep, hanging onto a rope with massive waves crashing above you. And now, you've just surfaced after holding your breath for minutes. And despite the brutal conditions, you're smiling. You've just broken a world record. This is Anna-Karina Schmidt, one of the world's best freedivers. But her story isn't really about chasing records underwater. It's about what drove her there. In her early 20s, Anna received a diagnosis that stops most people in their tracks: multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune disease attacking her nervous system. After her first severe attack left her struggling to walk, she faced a choice that would define everything that followed. She could accept the trajectory doctors laid out for her, or she could completely reimagine how to live. What Anna did next sounds simple, but is extraordinarily hard. She changed everything. And at the center of it all was water, the place where she felt most at home since childhood. Today, not only has Anna avoided the progression her doctors predicted, she's rewriting what's possible for her body entirely while chasing world records. This is her story. This is where the ocean meets Anna-Karina Schmidt.
Where the ocean meets.
Hi Anna, great to have you here today.
Hello, Joel. Yes, I'm very excited to be part of that podcast.
I would say let's dive right in literally. You just set a world record in conditions that looked actually pretty brutal. High waves, and at the end you were hanging on to that rope with a huge smile. I have to say that world record was set in apnea diving. In that exact moment when you were hanging on to that rope, what was going through your head?
It was, I cannot even say. I was so focused on doing the right thing in the right moment to actually receive the white card that I wanted to prove that it was an absolutely beautiful and amazing dive. So I was super focused that the water is not hitting my face, because if it would hit my face at some point, I would be disqualified. So I know, and that was not even something that I did consciously. It was unconsciously. I'm conditioned to act that way. So it's like an autopilot thing that I'm holding onto the rope and that I'm climbing up so the water is not reaching my face. So it's not so much that I thought in this moment. It was just a pure bliss to execute the dive almost exactly the way I was rehearsing it, or how you can also say visualizing it.
So there was your body was smiling, your face was smiling, but in your mind you were still focused on executing the rules, basically. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
And before we dive into the full story, I think when talking to an apnea diver, you have to ask the question: how long can you actually hold your breath?
Yes. So this year, March, I was able in a training to hold my breath 6 minutes and 10 seconds. That was my maximum.
And you can probably still remember how it was
Yeah.
when you first started, and it was maybe the standard 45 seconds, 1 minute, something like that. Does it feel the same way towards the end when you're out of breath? Is your body screaming for air, or how does it change over time?
It's a really good question. And for me, I must say, when I did my very first static session, I was so free in my mind and so happy to find people that also practicing this sport, because before my teenager years, I didn't know there is a sport. And I had no expectation in that moment. And they just said, okay, this is how it works. You are just lying on the surface, you're not moving, and you just enjoy. So you take the fullest breath in you can, and then you just enjoy. And then I did. And because time was not in my mind, I didn't have any expectation of what is good, what is not good. My actually very first breath hold was 4 minutes. It was really beautiful. But then afterwards, it took me more than 1 year to come back to overreach that. Because afterwards I had this Messlatte, you would say in German. I had this expectation. And then I was completely focused on the number, and then it didn't work. Then it really didn't work, and then it was suffering to get there. But it can be very blissful if you manage to have empty mind and just enjoy, and you are in a beautiful moment like that. But yeah, having that in mind, it's if you talk to real athletes, and I wouldn't say I'm a real athlete. I mean, I'm very good in freediving. I improve. I set a world record, but that's also a very young sport. But if you talk to real athletes, well, they would tell you that if they perform in their best moment, they don't feel any any stress, or that it's hard, because if you are trained like that, the things, they just happen automatically. And with a breath hold, it's very similar. You can also visualize a lot here, and you can learn to relax. And of course, the last part is hard in a way, because you're pushing through contractions that your body wants to breathe, but you're counting them. But it's a big part of that is a mental game. But of course, your body needs to be trained to have this high amounts of CO2, high levels of CO2, and on the other hand, the O2 is also getting lower at some point if you go more than 6 minutes under one breath hold. But you're gradually going there, right? So you don't do this from one day to another, and this is why training is so important. It's not just to train, but also to get the confidence and the self-image that you are capable of reaching such a performance.
We will go into that hopefully a bit later again. But you just mentioned that when you were a teenager, this was not a sport yet, right? And today, most people are terrified of being underwater without oxygen, without life support, basically. What is your earliest memory of feeling comfortable under the water?
That's a really good question. Earliest. I think it began in the city where I am right now, coincidentally. So my grandma took me to that public swimming pool. It's in the city of Wiesbaden, and it's a Nerobergbahn. It's on top of a mountain. And there is also a pool, which is on one side of the pool. It's a bit deeper. I don't know, maybe it's... When I was young, it looked like 5 meters, but I don't know how deep it's really, maybe 3 meters, something like that. And there was always one guy who was diving to the bottom. And I observed this guy, and I liked it so much. And then I started to just dive a little bit, like 2 meters, and I think I was, I don't know, 5 years old or something. But I couldn't reach the bottom because of the ear, and I didn't know how to equalize. But I was enjoying it a lot. So the whole days that I spent the summer, I was always just underwater. The same was on the Rhine River. No one was diving there or even swimming. And I was fishing for shells and everything that was in the mud. So I was really digging in the mud in the river and took out all the different kinds of shells, and I spent hours there. And it was even to that...
In the Rhine River?
In the Rhine River. Even to that point that my grandma... So I saw the documentaries on the TV of the divers, and I was fascinated by the black, huge fins. There were these huge fins I saw on the TV. And then my grandma did everything for me, and I took her to a dive store. I found it somewhere in Wiesbaden, and there was this black fins, and I really wanted them. And she said, "No, I will not buy you black fins because I cannot see you underwater." And then I was frustrated. And then in the same store, there were pink fins. And then she bought me pink, like neon pink fins. But I was super ashamed because I always wanted the cool black ones. I was like, okay, but anyway, I took them, right? So at some point, she had a leash. So she was sitting on the shore, and she had a leash attached to me. And then I was diving, and she thought that if I'm wearing the pink fins, she can see the fins if I'm diving, yeah? But in fact, she never saw them because the Rhine is too muddy anyways. But yeah, so one can say that my grandmother was my first safety diver.
That's perfect. What a supportive grandma. And if we fast forward a little bit, right? You described yourself or your lifestyle at that point in time as more of a party lifestyle. Was diving playing any role, or water playing any role during that period in your life, or was it? lost?
Actually, it was. It really was, because at the time I was with some people. They love to ride really fast boats, like this kind of fast boat, from the Miami Vice movies and all this kind of boats. So I spent like a decade with this community of people who are driving the really, really fast boats. But the best thing in these adventures was for me always to sit on the bathing platform and to gaze down the water. And yeah, there were parties, but in the end, I was still very young, and at that time, so I was always enjoying to spend as much time in the water as possible. Even then, I remember I was even sometimes I had a few prosecco, and I was still jumping and even diving. And even in that time, I remember that I was diving at night. I love to dive at night, because then you cannot see where the surface begins, which is also scary. But if you're diving and then you look up at night, there's nothing, right? So it's like in out of space. I really always loved that moments. Yeah.
Did you ever think about why you love it so much?
I don't know. It's something where it's like when people love to meditate. It's a bit like this feeling of weightless, of there's no time, even the noise. So the noise, they really shut down. And it reminds me of something, it's connecting, but not just with myself, it's very universal. It's super hard to find a word for that. I think that we do not have a word yet for that. Maybe the freedivers should come up with their own word.
There's this quote, I think, that somehow every living being, or specifically the humans also, we come from the ocean, right? It's like we have it still in us today. The concentration of salt in our blood is exactly the same like the oceans, so that we do feel at home. And maybe there's some link there that would be very interesting to explore further.
There is a book, Blue Mind. And and there's science behind it. So, and there is this discovery how water calms the nervous system. It's really interesting. It's a nice book, and it's not only in the ocean. It's also when you just have a shower. So sometimes you're super stressed and you just are at home. So it's just the idea that everyone has access. Even I'm in Switzerland, right? So I make the lake my best friend. So this is why I came up with a world record, actually, because I like it so much, to just make the most of the water that we have, and we have it everywhere. Even though it's no excuse if you don't live at the water at the seaside. You can really,
It's interesting with the nervous system that it calms us down, because I think maybe that's why we all venture to the ocean on vacation. And I think it's also a good segue to something else that happened in your 20s, right? It's like you did have that diagnosis of with multiple sclerosis. I'm not sure how to say that in English, MS. And this is basically labeled as incurable. And the way that I understand other interviews from you is that in the beginning you pushed it away. Can you talk about the moment when you realized that you had to change something, and was diving part of it from day one?
Yeah, the moment when I realized I have to change something was after a massive attack from the nervous system. So what actually happens is that it's autoimmune. So the immune system attacks the nerves, mainly in the brain or in the first vertebrals of the spinal cord. And what happens is, like, the nerve is like a cable, and it's a myelin. It's the outer protection of the nerve. And it looks and it's inflamed, and there is like a damage, and so you cannot say if the damage is going to be healed from its own or not, and you cannot say when it happens, and so on. And when I had the first massive attack was in 2013, was already a few years after I was diagnosed, but I was super lucky to have such a mild progression, but that was quite strong. I was not able to walk much and so on. And then I knew I have to change something because I'm a very proactive person, and to be active and to feel and to run and to enjoy the life, like very explorative, let's say, or adventurous. It was always something that I did my whole life. And then I realized, okay, if I let that happen, and I really felt this, if I let it happen, I will maybe end up in a wheelchair very soon. And at that time, the first thing I was doing, like I was following the advice from the doctors, and I took that pills. And then I realized I have a really huge side effect. And then I went back to the doctor, and I already started to research on the cause, not just on fighting the symptoms, but what might be the cause. And then I found out that dairies, milk products and so on, and the saturated fats within them, they are causing the inflammation in the body in general, which is also, it shouldn't be a big problem in general, but in our nutrition nowadays, we are having it's not in balance anymore. So we're having too much of saturated fat, and that can cause this inflammation. So it's very universal. It's not just for that sickness. But in the end, I went to the doctor and I said, look, I have this side effect from that pill. It's really strong and I don't like it. I feel very insecure because that was a rash, like red skin in my everywhere. And I was at work and I didn't talk about that at the time. And it was a very, oberflächlich. It was a very
Superficial.
My fear was that other people see that I'm sick. So that was my fear. So that was how little I was reflected at the time. And then I went to the doctor and asked, oh no, I don't want other people to identify, And then the doctor said, look, if you eat cereals in the morning with a lot of milk, the side effects go away. And at the time, I already read this correlation, that there is for the sickness and other autoimmune diseases that are in the nervous system, they are progressing because of that. And then I was like, I just looked at her because I knew if you start to talk to doctors like that and say, okay, no, I won't because I read this and this, they would not really, go and support you with that idea. So I just never came back and I never took the pill again. And I started to change, my diet, and then I started. In the beginning, I was vegan plus fish because I thought that I need omega-3 from fish and so on, because in that time people thought that you need it, but actually you don't need it, and I don't. And my health reason also turned more and more the more I did it into ethical reasons as well. So
So blessing in disguise almost.
Yeah, but it's not just the nutrition. I would say it's also so this sickness, like with many other nervous sicknesses or I would say conditions on the nervous system, they're related to stress also and to nutrition. So it's very holistic actually. It took me years and years, looking back now, to set the lifestyle. How do you want to live? Where do you want to live? How do you want to work? How do you want to interact with your friends? Who are your friends? And all this is part of a lifestyle that helps me to stay healthy, let's say. And also looking back, today I had this amazing conversation with someone, and he had another condition also. He had a burnout, and he told me, look, Anna, I'm very grateful that I had this burnout because opened my eyes so much to change my life and my lifestyle. And I always tell people that, look, I have this disease that cannot be healed. But in the end, it's a blessing because it reminds me to go back to my roots. It reminds me to live a healthy lifestyle. But it's not like if I tell people I try to be healthy and so on, they always think that it's a burden. Yeah, you have to look what you eat all the time. But it's not. It feels so good from inside out that I love that life, and I will never want to change back to anywhere. So it's a blessing in the end. It's a wake up call.
I find that very or to some degree relatable, because I think everybody at some point in their lives had that realizations like, I should live a bit more healthy lifestyle, whatever. And then there's such a big gap between that realization and really taking action. And since I know you, which is by now 2016, I'm bad at math, but almost 10 years, I think to this date, I've never met a more consequential person in my life. Is there anything that you can share what helped you stay so consequential and not divert from that path?
Oh, I feel very honored now if you say that like that. Well, maybe this is where freediving comes into the game, because it channels my passion. And if I want to follow on this journey of having the moments spent underwater extended. So this is how I see the competitions. I try to see it as deeper I go, or as longer I can go in the pool, the more I can experience that moments of joy that I have actually. And I can only experience these moments if I'm fit, if I'm physically in a good moment, but also mentally. And to be also mentally in a good shape, the water is such a mirror. So sometimes you think, oh yeah, I feel so good, I feel so strong, But then you go and there is something that doesn't let you go deeper. And there is this feeling on the chest, or some stress that you cannot let go of, or some tension. And it's always an invitation, and sometimes I really do it. I really go home and write down what are the things, and then you are working again and again. You are again and again confronted to reflect. So yeah, so you asked, the question was a different one, like why am I so consequent? I think it's a mixture of hitting the bottom. So if you really know, if you feel it in your body that you cannot move, you cannot walk stairs, you cannot even touch your finger nose tip. It's a basic test, neuro test that you do. You cannot walk on a line. If you felt once in your life like that, I think this is so deep in my cells, in my being, that I just don't want to eat shit. It cannot. It's just impossible.
Yeah. So the pleasure of achieving the targets and not feeling like that are then higher than. Well, it's difficult to put it in words. And I mean, obviously, not everybody should have a bad diagnosis, right? To change their lifestyle.
And I think it's also like if you talk to people that are really changing their lifestyle in that way, the body gets used to the good lifestyle. And of course, I have days where I'm eating not so well because I'm traveling, because of whatsoever, because I want to taste this chocolate again, and then I overdo it. And this is all life. So I'm not always vegan. 1.5 years I've chosen to eat egg again because I was sick of protein powder. So I'm now eating eggs. I'm vegan plus organic eggs right now, right? And I think you should start. I mean, no, you should not. No one should do anything. It's not that I want to tell people what to do here. It's not what I want to say. But if you start to feed your body will tell you intuitively what is good. And if you're on this level, you can listen to it a little bit even. It can guide you on that path. And sometimes you do something because it's life, and it's stressful, it's unhealthy, but that's also life. And you cannot live the perfect life and protect yourself from everything. And then you learn from it. And this is every day, right? So I think the secret is very boring, but the secret is that you are consistent, and that even if you don't have a good day, okay, tomorrow is a good day, okay, and then is tomorrow, and you forget about the shit that happens, and you just start new, and everything will be good, right?
So stop chasing perfection.
Exactly.
Just get better over time. And one of those moments when I realized again is like how consequential you are, right? When we first started texting, if you want to do this interview, and I asked you some questions, and you were like, I have a competition on the weekend. I'm focusing on that now. Let's speak again afterwards. And I find that so nice because I don't think that a lot of people can set boundaries for themselves that well and communicate it that well. And for me, it was interesting because it was 3-4 days before the competition. I would like you to take me through your world record dive. Like, what does the preparation look like? What happens when you get in the water? What happens when you first go down? Basically, the descent. What is happening to your body, to your mind at each of the stages of the dive?
So yeah, the reason why, and you're not the only one, right? So you were not the only one I told, okay, I'll be back after the weekend. Also told family and friends, because, I mean, I knew that and before the competition, I knew it's very likely that I'm going to at least be in a situation where I could do a world record. But just 4 weeks or 3 weeks before the competition, I completely changed the discipline. So I wanted to dive with fins, with 2 fins, which is my major discipline. I have trained B-fins since I started freediving. Yeah, for the simple reason I didn't have a monofin. It was complicated to get one organized. And diving without fins in the lakes is something that we did never do because it's unpractical. You need more thicker, thinner wetsuit and all that. And then 4 weeks before the competition, I did my first no-fin dive, 40 meters. And I realized, it was a very pleasant dive. Okay, and then let's do 45. Okay, whatever. I did 45, was really nice. And then I did 47, was very nice. And then I did 50. So I actually just had 4 training dives or 5 training dives. And they went super well. I knew I can do it, but then I had this inflammation in my ankle. And that's why I changed the discipline, because I couldn't do the fins. It was too heavy on my ankle. I get a surgery in September. But I also knew that I didn't train this discipline so much. So my body the autopilot isn't 100% ready, because I was afraid that when I'm in the zone, that when I start my dive, that I move my legs without the fins, you know what I mean? Because I'm so conditioned with that. So I knew weeks before, I have to work on my mental setup more than anything, because apparently from wherever I am, from the technique, from the diving, I'm very, gifted. And then I went also to the gym to get stronger in my arms and legs. And I didn't really spend a lot of time in the water. So the last 3 days before the competition, I was in the water there to see how the water is. It's in Italy, it's in Lago di Garda. It's much warmer than the Lake of Zurich. It has much more light. There were super nice people down there. So I was, diving a little bit, and the most important thing is to find the joy and the pleasure. That I'm not, that my mind does not mix up the feelings of stress and competition, but rather of having the pleasure. So I also never overdo it. So I want to stay hungry. So I want the dive that day. Then I'm not thinking, now I have to go and compete, but it's like, yes, now I'm allowing myself to do this again. And a lot of visualization and things like that, the days before the actual dive.
Mm. And then the day of the competition comes. You did all the mental practice. You went through the dive again and again and again.
Yeah.
You get into the water and you're about to start. Like, for somebody that never did freediving, I never watched a proper competition. I only saw the highlight reels. What happens?
Yeah. So what also, I was on the rope. I'm on the rope. What happens there is the day before, you have to announce your performance. So you have to write down a number, what you will do the next day. And everyone does it. Every athlete writes down a number, what they will do the next day. So the depth is completely fixed. But in the evening of that day, you will get the start list. So every athlete will see where the time is when they start. It's an exact time with exact seconds. Normally, I'm not looking at the start list. Normally, I don't want to see what other people are doing, because I don't want to, first of all, know that I'm in the pressure situation of attempting a world record, because it's creating nervosity. And I don't want to know if there are other girls that are doing the same depth, possibly, or that are even doing bigger depth. But at that time, at that weekend, my partner wasn't there and the Swiss team wasn't there. So I was the only one on the dive side, and I had to share with them the start list and everything. So then the first time that I do a competition like that and I look at the start list this time, so I saw that I'm the only one who's diving 51 meter, even though there was a really strong candidate at the side. And then I knew, okay, it's just me, yeah? There's no one else. So if I fuck it up, it's me who fucks it up, right? So, and that created a little bit of pressure. But on the other hand, it was like a very privileged situation, yeah? So if I just do it well, I would just get it without problems. And then I was on the rope. I had 1 hour of delay because there was a little happening in the competition with another diver. So it was 1 hour delay and there was super strong waves. But to be honest, I was so in my mental thing that I was just hanging on the rope. The conditions, they helped me to be present because I feel the water so much and it's so much on my skin. It didn't get me nervous in the end, which is super cool, but also because I was mentally so prepared that anything could have happened in that moment. There could have been a bomb or whatever, and I would have still done my dive, even though coming up no one would be there. But you know what I mean? I'm breathing into my belly and I'm breathing a little bit longer out than in because that helps to switch from the sympathetic, and you are really, really relaxed. There, it takes a lot to bring you out of that state, right? And if you're really, really nervous, it's the opposite. So I was really trying to be in this state. Yeah, so I'm breathing out more. I'm trying to relax as much as I can in this situation. There are waves, there are people watching me, people filming me, and so on. And then I hear 30 seconds, and then I start to breathe out a lot of air to really get all the old CO2 out, all the old oxygen out. That when I take my final breath, that I make sure that I have the really fresh air and everything is full. I do a equalization of my ear, and then I start to really swim down. And then I really focus the first 10 meters. I'm very positively buoyant, so I need to really focus on a very efficient technique that I'm overcoming this positive buoyancy. And I had relatively a lot of weight with me, so around 15, 60 meters, I'm neutral. And afterwards, I would sink negatively. So, yeah, and I'm focusing, my thoughts are really relaxation. So is my forehead relaxed? Are my shoulders relaxed? The equalization goes super well. So it's very, very positive. You really have the self-talk also there, and the positive self-talk, and then you relax. And then you do everything what you've also programmed in the days before.
In the beginning, basically you're being pushed up by the air in your lungs, and then over time that is being compressed through the pressure around you. Is that correct? But it also gets colder, no? Like, do you feel these things during the dive, or are you so in your head that...
I didn't feel it because I'm so in my head and I'm conditioned. But, huge but, because since this year, I'm just diving with a nose clip, not the mask anymore. And that was a big change for me, a major change. Like, so major that when I started with that already in March, I felt like a beginner free diver, really, like to go through that journey in, of course, much faster way, but a bit like beginning again to free dive, because all the relaxation is gone if you have 6-degree cold water here in your really sensitive zones of the face. And especially for me, there are some people who have a really easy switch from nose clip to the mask. But for me, it was extremely difficult to make this change. So yeah, there is a colder water in the Lago di Garda. It's not so strong as it is in Zurich. But it's also like, if you focus on the right thing, you don't feel it that much. And if you feel it, you also visualize that, of course. and you associate it with a positive thing. So it's also like in the beginning, the cold gives you, or takes away your relaxation. But the truth is that the dive reflex is much stronger with cold water. So I knew when I changed that, I'm very sensitive to the cold, but this kind of sensitivity would play very, very adventurous if I'm overcoming the struggle in the beginning. And I have the feeling that that played out exactly in the right moment, because I only switched it in March, and in July I was ready. My body was ready to enter the free fall and to enter in the dive mode, and taking that cold as a positive thing.
And what happens when you pass that buoyancy zone, right? When you start free falling?
Yeah.
Does it give you a kick? Like, I could imagine that, like, for me personally, there's so much that is scary around that entire sport. And then at some point you just start falling faster and faster. It gets dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit like, how can I say, it's somehow, if you're really in a zone of in this beautiful moment of letting things go and of really feeling the relaxation, it's I cannot say, I cannot compare with anything else. It's a bit like the moment. Sometimes you remember, sometimes when I'm waking up in bed and I'm really comfortable in my bed, because I like the smell of my bed, I like the feeling of my bed, I don't have to get up, I have no stress and no rush around me. I'm not sleeping, but I'm not awake yet. Like this feeling of that your mind is there, and it's very similar what I feel in the free fall. It's I'm focused, so I'm there. I'm 100% there, because otherwise I couldn't do the job. I want to say I couldn't do the dive, because I need to open my tubes to do the equalization. I need to close the glottis that the air is not sucked in from the pressure outside. I need to be parallel to the rope, have a really good streamline. I need to be relaxed. But this is something that happens, and all the rest is just not there. It's like sleeping. So there's no stress, there's no thoughts that are negative. It's just nice. And yeah.
It sounds so fascinating. And at the same time, the stakes are so incredibly high, right? So if you do make mistakes, it's an environment where humans typically are not around, basically. So I find it so hard to imagine that you need to be so focused, and yet, I don't know, you feel this relaxation in your mind. Like these are or from the outside, it sounds like these are two forces that work against each other, right? Like you're actively fighting your fight or flight reflex. How do you do that? Is it pure training? Is it pure repetition?
Actually, it's not, because you're not in the fight and flight mode. You're in the rest and digest mode. It's you're not in this mode, not at all. You're in a very peaceful moment there. It's really not that you're fighting anything. It can be. Of course, I've had dives that were horrible, really, like that I really didn't like and enjoy. But that's not the dives that are out of any reason performed beautifully. There's always something that you take away. Okay, I need to study, why is my equalization not working? Why do I feel out of breath? Why do I have early contractions? What is my technique? Is my technique not efficient enough? So there are a lot of things that we want to learn, and we want to study, we want to dig deeper. Or is it just the stress that sometimes you feel like being choked or something? And that can be more a mental thing, that it's the water. So in the end, it's really, it's not that you're fighting, it's exactly the opposite. So this is why freediving is very different from other sports. So when we perform this, We want to be in the most relaxed circumstances or state that we can be, which can be tricky to reach in a competition.
Mm. Does the sound change down there?
Yeah.
Do you hear different things?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear something, this is the only thing, now that you say it, I never really thought about it consciously, but now that you say it, like, if I hear a boat underwater, I don't know, I don't like it. If I'm in a competition, probably don't care, because I know it's so safe. There are safety divers and everything. So in some competitions, we even have a dive eye diving down with you and filming you all the time. And that makes a noise, the dive eye itself. Or then you come up and there is someone with a scooter meeting you and coming up with you. And that's a good noise because you know, okay, this guy comes and saves me and so on. If something goes wrong. So this is also good to hear, okay, I'm not alone in the last meters, there's someone. So this is very positive sound. But yeah, sometimes when I'm in the Lake of Zurich and we are just two people or maybe 3 people on the buoy, and sometimes when I dive down and I hear the boat and you hear it, even though it's very far away, and sometimes you hear it super noisy, super loud. And that sometimes scares me, even though I know it's so far away. But then sometimes there are the stories of other people that have accidents with boats, and then you have this picture in your mind, and then it scares you a little bit. Yeah, the noise. Yeah.
And how do you bring your focus back to the dive then in such moments?
When I look up, if there's a boat, and you know, if you're really scared and it doesn't feel right, so you can always turn around, right? You know, it's take it easy. There is another day. There is another time. So there should never be pressure in that sport. Really not. Even in a competition. I've turned early in competitions because it didn't feel right. But if you are beginning or starting, there's always a point where you have to find this fine line where what is too much, or how much can my ears hurt. Okay, normally they should never feel hurt, but in the beginning you don't know what is the pain, how does it feel like. So you have to at some point come close to this barriers, how to say, to this experiences where it can be dangerous, and that your body knows, now it's dangerous. Okay, now I have to turn, and then everything will be all right. But if you're a completely beginner and you're pushing too much, and then you don't know all the signs, right? How does it feel in your body to dive healthy, and what does it feel to dive really not healthy?
So you don't feel scared, you don't feel that there's danger because you know your body and everything's still well?
Yeah. No, of course. It's really not. It's really not scary. It's not dangerous because you've done it so often also in the training. So it's even though in this time the 51 meter was a world record in the discipline without fins in fresh water. Even though that was also personal best, but just because I didn't have the time to practice so much. But it didn't scare me because I went to more than 80 meters already. So in my mind, I also knew, okay, my body knows the depth. And if for any reason, if my arms are too weak, I can always pull the rope and, pull myself up. And then the safety diver also knows there's something wrong. Okay. And then they rescue me. So in the end, in the competition, it's very safe to dive.
And then at some point you hit the point where you need to turn around. How do you know when that point comes, especially if you don't have a mask, right? You can't see really underwater. It's dark.
True. Yeah. I mean, there's a word in freediving. It's called deconcentration or defocusing. It's a bit of a weird word. And yeah, because on the one hand, we are super focused, but on the other hand, we want to be super defocused, to be in this meditative state. And it's a bit like that. So when I dive down, I have my eyes always like closed, and then I open them a little bit. That I see the reference, the rope before me, and I have a torch, so I see the rope with my light. But I'm never having the eyes all the time open. I never have them all the time closed. It's something between. Something very intuitively. And then I have my Garmin dive computer, and it gives me a signal. This time at 46 meter, I get a signal, and then it reminds me, okay, I'm almost there. And then only like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I open my eyes and I know I'm there. And then the rope has that marks. It's called candy cane because it looks like a candy cane. It's white. It's a white tape, like a candy cane. And then you see the candy cane. No, okay, I'm there. And then you grab the tag that you need to bring up. And then I always attach it underneath my wetsuit. And then you pull, and then you dive up. So this is how you know.
All the people at the top know that you're turning and that you're coming up.
Yeah, that's how they know it. And also in this special discipline where you do not have the fins, it also helps you a little bit to come up, because until 15 meters you're negatively buoyant, and if you're just diving with your body without the fins, it's they say it's just more exhausting to come up and to kick and have the arms drop.
And do you feel the changes in pressure then also on your body as you come up? Like, do you feel like something?
Yeah, I feel the air is coming back in my airways. So I feel the air is coming. I feel it in my sinuses a little bit, and a little bit in my ear, but very nicely. So it's that's how I feel it. And then of course when you swim up, when you're reaching 20 meters, you start to kick less, to have less arm strokes, because then comes a beautiful moment when the water takes over and floats you up.
Lift and
then you get the lift. Ah, yes.
And then you break through the surface. And what's the protocol then?
Yes. The protocol when you break through the surface is, like for me, the first thing is to remove the nose clip. And I try to do it already underwater, but just before I come through the surface. And then I really hold on to the rope as much as I can, because in case you have a loss of motor control, which can happen, and then you're shaking a little bit, and in this case you really want to hold on a lot to the rope. That didn't happen to me there, but it can happen, especially in a competition when you have more stress, which can add to more oxygen consumption that you didn't had in your training. This is why I really try to hold on to my rope. But the protocol is very simple. You go up and you show the okay sign and you say, I'm okay. And then you have to show that you have the tag. If you don't have the tag, even you can see it on the dive computer that you wear. It's a competition computer that you get. But if you don't have the tag, it's just a tradition. It's not recognized as a world record. So you have to have the tag. This is really important.
So many details that you have to remember on an
if the order
drive.
If the order is not the right one, if you say first I'm okay and then you show, for AIDA you would be disqualified. For swimmers, I think you wouldn't be disqualified. But and this is also how they check if you're still okay in your mind, right? Because it's not a nice and athletic performance if you don't know what happened, right? If you're so close to a blackout or even having a blackout, then you cannot be qualified as a good dive or a good performance. Then you didn't respect your body boundaries and you overdone it because of ego-driven reasons or something like that.
And is it then mainly euphoria that floats your veins when you're above water, or what do you feel?
Yeah, in this case of a successful competition dive, it's anyway. I had some students some time back, and they told me that it's like ecstasy. If you free dive, even though they were doing 20 meter, 10 meter, and they come up and the first breath, they were completely how to say absorbed, stunned. So it's that exactly. And in a competition, it's times 10, because of course it's the same thing. Like after a free dive, it's always amazing to have the first breath. It's really cool. It's like a rebirth. But on top of everything, if you know that this is a good dive and you will get the white card, and in this case you will get the world record, it's a super nice moment. It's really nice.
How do you celebrate these days?
Actually, not so much. Not so much. It's just I don't know. When I went to my first World Championship some while ago, I realized the training there at the location there, and also the dives to the World Championship. They were a roller coaster where you have such a good dives when you feel like, oh my gosh, yeah, and then you have all these emotions and chemicals in your body, and the next day is really like a hangover. Yeah, you're really sometimes depressed like that. And I realized I really try to be more humble about this situation, to not be too enthusiastic or arrogant or I'm the best or whatever, because it's coming back, this energy in a very bad way. So I really try to see these highs and lows, and even the same with the lows. Yeah, if you have a bad dive, don't get too dramatic about it, right? Like write down what you can improve, what was good. It's 100% better to have a bad dive and a bad time. At least you had a training. 100% more than if you had a zero training at that day. So you already won. And I try to look at every training like that. This is how I train. This is the training philosophy that I have. And the same with the good dives. It's like, yeah, I try to really get these emotions a bit out, the bad ones and the really, really the emotions that are too much sometimes.
Cut off the peaks.
A little bit. Right? But it's a practice. So the practice means that, okay, theoretically we know how it's done best, but we are just practicing. So we are practicing and practicing. So we are getting closer and closer to the optimal. But maybe the lifetime is not enough to reach it.
So much is, I think, transferable to real life of what you learned in diving.
A lot.
What would you say are the biggest lessons that you've drawn from diving into your day to day?
The mind controls everything. I really believe that we can do anything and get everything if we really want it and if we stick to it. That. And second, everything takes longer than we think. So practice and stay true to your practice. And don't look right and left. Don't look too much what are the others doing. Because in the end, they are just human as you are. They are people like you. They are going through the same journey. They are loving the sport as much as you do. And give love to the other athletes anytime and everywhere. And even though they are your biggest competitor, I think it's amazing what everyone is doing out there. And yeah, that's also a learning that if someone is better than you, or if you're competing with someone also in life, like what you do, Joel, also like this kind of podcast. So it's always good to share with people. Don't see them as your threat or be afraid of them. So I think it's really, that's a really good learning for myself to, I don't know.
It's super interesting. I think you haven't had an attack anymore, right? From the MS for a long time. Is
yes,
it considered cured or like?
No, it's never considered cured, and it's also not true. I had, but I didn't feel them. So you can see them in the skin, and they're not as major as there was this one back then, or a few of them back then. But they're still there, and but I changed my life a little bit in the last months and weeks. I'm founding my business. I quit my corporate job, which was a good job. It was really an amazing job. But I quit it also for health reasons and to be more, in charge of your calendar, more in charge of your life, and to not be surrounded by too many other stakeholders wanting some things from you. It was a bit too much. And
So another example, the consequence.
Yeah, and I gave my health now 1 year, and I want to live, as I said in the interview before. I want to live. I don't want to protect myself from everything. I want to do all the life experience, right? But I want to do it as best as I can, and I want to see what happens. And I will do scans in 1 year, and I will see how they look like.
Yeah, but it's fascinating for me to see how freediving or apnea diving changed you. I know you before you started it professionally, and seeing how you progressed is just insane. So where can somebody take the first step to become a freediver? In the pool next door?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Nowadays, there are a lot of freediving clubs in every country, almost in every city. You can start there by Googling.
Just Google. Yeah.
You can also follow some freedivers on Instagram if you want. You can get in touch. Like the freedivers are a nice crowd, let's say. So, yeah, you can do a course. You can do a workshop. You can do a retreat also. You can come with me in September to the Y40. It's the deepest thermal water pool. It's super nice. You don't have to wear a wetsuit. So it's really like being in a very nice warm water. And we will guide you on meditation, yoga, and your first baby steps in a free dive water. It's need to be.
I can only highly recommend following you on socials because the images are spectacular. It's so beautiful. And I always like to end on a very quick fire section, basically, with a few fast questions.
Rapid fire.
First question I have to ask it. What was the most genuinely terrifying moment you had while freediving?
Yeah, there was one moment. It was actually a few years back, and I wanted to dive 50-meter free immersion in the lake. And I was out with some freedivers that were not very experienced in a way. And before my dive, we were talking to a fisherman, and he had the net out. It was it was a fishing net, and he said it goes to 50-meter, this net, and it's drifting. It's a drifting net. But then before the dive, we observed this fisherman where he was, and we said, okay, he's far away. It's not a problem. You can totally do your dive. And then I prepared for my dive, and I was relaxed. That's what I thought. I was relaxed. And then I started my dive, and also I don't like the discipline. And that was, as I say, I was more in the beginning freediver, and there was a competition coming up, and I wanted to dive with free immersion that I'm not so very used to. And then I was diving down, and from one moment to the other, I lost the focus on the equalization. And then I don't know where this was coming from. And then I had all the thought of this fisherman. What if? Yeah, this was really the only time in my life that I had this what if scenario at 49 meter. That what if I come up and I cannot, because there is this fishing, this rope, and I cannot, and these people on the surface, they are not so very trained. Maybe they cannot rescue me because the bottom weight is super heavy, and it was completely nightmare, this dive. And and then I really got panic, and I came up super fast. I was speeding up, and in the end, everything was okay. There was nothing. There was no fish on net. There were the people there were. Yeah, I didn't even tell them the nightmare that I've had on this dive.
Mhm.
But to be honest, it frightened me. The dive was frightening me. That until the day today, I don't like the discipline very, very much. But I'm overcoming this. And it must be the easiest discipline because you're just putting up the rope. That's the discipline that I'm talking about. But that's also a big learning. So you shouldn't, if you don't feel like diving, just don't. Yeah? There's another session. If there is a fisherman, why should you risk your life for one moment, for just a few seconds, not even minutes, for something that could have happened? I mean, it didn't. He was really far away, but that was really very stupid of me also. So that was a big learning, yeah.
I think the other learning is, again, so often things are in our head, right? And not
Yeah.
real threats.
It was not real. It was just that I suppressed something, and I did it instead of that. So I didn't listen to myself, but it came back to me 100 times bigger under pressure. literally, because if you're diving, this is a mirror of your psyche. That's what I really believe, and other freedivers do that too. If you're not clean from your psyche, it comes back.
So you,
So you need
you
to
can't take your
clean.
worries underwater, basically.
No, you cannot.
Yeah, maybe that's why everybody likes to dive. Very interesting. Now a bit of a philosophical one. The ocean becomes conscious, or the water, the lake, whatever your favorite water body, becomes conscious for 60 seconds and you can speak to it. What would you say?
I would really like to ask for the evolution of life.
What it is?
How did it begin? What was the big bang in there? Like, yeah, like this energy, like, because it's so unique what we have. I mean, we're the only planet that is forming life in that very unique way. And yeah, we don't even know exactly where the water is coming from. There are theories about how the water came to planet Earth, and if the water can tell me where it's coming from, yeah, that would be amazing. Because I think, yeah,
And I never thought about it that way. True. It has seen it since the dawn of time, basically. It's beautiful. And last one, you can have dinner with any marine animal, extinct or alive. Which one would it be and why? You can talk to it. You speak the language of the fish or of the manta or of whatever.
yeah, and I would like to talk with the most intelligent and oldest animal. Not sure which whale this might be, but I think it will be a whale. And the whale families, they are intelligent. I mean, they teach. Yeah, so they don't have books, so they have all their intellectual property they have within their body, because they don't have artificial intelligence. So information they have within their body. So what would they tell me? How did it all evolve? And are they happy? How are they today in a situation with all the threats? Do they see it as threats, or are they maybe so
Stoic.
this is now it, and I manage. Okay, there's a boat. Oh no, there was a buddy of mine killed. Okay, shit. Next time we must avoid the boat. Let's move on. Or how do they see it? You know, like I would really like to see how they see it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you for the time, and nothing but the best for you. And I'm sure we will see many world records being broken. So thank you.
Good day. Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube and our Instagram.
Where the ocean meets